My parents kicked me out with nothing but a phone and said my brother deserved my future. They gave him my college fund, my car, and my room. 4 years later, he walked into a job interview for my team. So I calmly picked up my pen and showed him exactly what that future cost. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The thin paper gown did nothing to stop the chill of the exam room. I sat on the edge of the paper-covered table, my hands clasped so tightly my knuckles were white. I was 18 years old and I was terrified. Not of the doctor or the impending diagnosis I could feel simmering in my bones, but of what I would have to tell my parents. I already knew the words: mononucleosis, severe case. Weeks, maybe months, of mandated rest. When I finally got home, clutching the prescription for rest that felt like a death sentence to my scholarship plans, the house was unusually quiet. My parents, Mark and Susan, were sitting at the kitchen table. My older brother, Christopher, was there too, looking smug. "There you are," my father said. His voice wasn't warm. It was flat, like a judge about to read a verdict. I have to tell you something," I started, my voice trembling. "I'm sick," the doctor said. "It doesn't matter," my mother, Susan, cut me off. She didn't even look up from inspecting her nails. "We've made a decision." I froze. What decision? "You," my father said, pointing a finger at me, "are not college material. We've seen your grades slip." "They slipped because I was working to save for textbooks," I cried, the injustice stinging. "You know that. I'm still in the top 5%. "That's enough," he snapped. "Your brother, Christopher, he has real potential. He has drive. He deserves the future we've been saving for, not you." My blood ran colder than the exam room. What are you talking about? My college fund." Christopher smirked. "It's my college fund now, Jenny, and the car, I need it to get to campus." I looked at my mother, pleading. She just shrugged. "He's right, Jennifer. We're giving him the fund and the car. And, well, he needs a proper study, so we're giving him your room, too. He needs the space." The air left my lungs. My room, where am I supposed to sleep? My father stood up. He walked to the front door and opened it. The cold night air of late autumn hit my face. "That's no longer our concern. You're 18, you're an adult, you're on your own." "You're kicking me out?" I whispered, the words tasting like ash. "But I'm sick. I have mono. I have nowhere to go." "Your brother deserves the future," my mother repeated, her voice like steel. "Not you." My father grabbed my backpack, the one I'd had since freshman year, from the hallway and threw it onto the porch. My phone charger and a half-empty water bottle fell out. He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging into my skin, and dragged me to the door. "No, please," I begged, tears streaming down my face. "Don't do this." "Goodbye, Jennifer." He shoved me out onto the porch and slammed the door. The deadbolt clicked shut. I stood there, shaking from sickness and shock, staring at the wood grain. I had my backpack, the clothes I was wearing, a prescription I couldn't afford, and a half-charged phone. I sank onto the top step, the cold concrete seeping through my jeans. The world had just tilted and thrown me off. I looked at my phone, 48% battery. I had maybe 2 hours to find a place to live before I was completely disconnected. The betrayal was worse than the diagnosis itself. The first night was a blur of panic. The 48% battery on my phone was my entire lifeline. I couldn't waste it. I scrolled through my contacts, my thumbs shaking. Who could I call? My friends were all kids themselves, living under their parents' roofs. Calling them would just get them in trouble. I spent the last of my battery life on a bus schedule and a search for a 24-hour diner. I rode the bus until the driver kicked me off at the end of the line. Then I walked 2 miles to a fluorescent-lit diner's delight. I bought a single cup of black coffee with the $7 in my pocket and sat in a corner booth, trying to stay awake and look like I belonged. The mono was a physical weight, pulling my eyelids down, making my throat feel like it was full of hot gravel. Every time the door opened, I flinched, terrified my father would show up, not to save me, but to tell me I couldn't be here either. After 2 days of nursing cheap coffee and sleeping in public bathroom stalls, I finally called the only number I could think of, my old high school friend, Tabitha. She was living in a tiny, one-bedroom apartment an hour away, working as a barista. When I told her what happened, there was a long silence. Jen. My lease says no overnight guests for more than 3 days. Tab, please, I begged, my voice cracking. I'm sick, I'm sleeping in a diner, I have nowhere else to go, just until I can find a job, I'll stay on the floor, you won't even know I'm here. Another pause. Okay, she finally said, her voice full of pity. Okay, but it has to be temporary. The relief was so profound it made me dizzy. Tabitha's couch became my world. For the first 2 weeks, I was too sick to do anything but sleep. The fever raged, and Tabitha, a saint in a coffee-stained apron, would leave me half her own dinner and aspirin before she left for her second job. As I slowly regained my physical strength, the emotional trauma settled in. The rage was a constant, simmering fire. I got a job at a 24-hour convenience store, the midnight to 8 a.m. shift. The pay was minimum wage, the customers a mix of truckers and drunk college kids. It was awful, but it was money. A few months later, I got a second job, a day shift at a warehouse packing boxes. I'd work from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., sleep for 4 hours on Tabitha's couch, then go to the convenience store. One night, about a year in, I was at the convenience store. My hands were raw from cleaning the slushy machine. A man in a crumpled suit came in, looking exhausted. He grabbed a Red Bull and a pre-made sandwich. He looked familiar. "You're Ethan, right?" I asked. "From the warehouse." He squinted at me. "Yeah, you work here too." "Night shift," I said. Ethan was a junior manager at the warehouse, one of the few who wasn't on a power trip. He was always quiet, just did his work. "You look tired," he said, not unkindly. "This is my second job," I admitted, trying to save up. "For what?" "An apartment, and I'm teaching myself to code online. I use the computers at the library when it's open." Ethan looked at me with a new respect. "Code? What language?" "Python first. Now I'm moving into C++ and SQL." He nodded, impressed. "Keep at it, you're smart, smarter than that warehouse." He became a small, bright spot in my grim routine. He'd leave me an extra sandwich from the break room at the warehouse, or give me a heads up when the library was having a weekend tech fair. He was just a decent person, and in my world, that was a rarity. It was during one of those late-night coding sessions at the library, my eyes burning, that the thought first crystallized. My parents had said Christopher deserved the future. They thought the future was a thing they could just give him, a pile of money, a car, a degree. They were wrong. A future wasn't given, it was built. And they had forgot one crucial thing. They gave him my college fund, but they couldn't give him my brain. My brother, Christopher, had always been the sun our family revolved around. I was just a moon, reflecting his light, and if I ever dared to shine on my own, I was quickly eclipsed. He was 2 years older, handsome, and had a charm that could disarm anyone. He was captain of the football team, even though he rarely practiced. He got B's and C's without trying, which my parents lauded as effortless intelligence. My straight A's, earned through hours of relentless study, were dismissed as just what you're supposed to do. My sacrifices for him were endless. When I was 16, I won a $5,000 regional science fair. My project was a simple water filtration system for hiking. I was so proud. I'd planned to use the money to buy a reliable used car. My parents convinced me to give it to Christopher instead. He'd gotten into some trouble again and needed to pay for damages to school property after a party got out of hand. "He's the man of the house, Jennifer," my father had said, a phrase that made no sense. "He has a reputation to protect. You can just win another one." I never won another one. I spent my free time working a part-time job to save for the car I'd never get. That money, every cent I'd saved, was in a joint account with my parents. It was the same account they'd emptied and handed to Christopher, along with my tuition fund. The person who had amplified Christopher's worst traits was my mother. Susan saw herself in him. She'd been a local beauty who, in her words, could have been somebody if she hadn't gotten married. She poured all her frustrated ambitions into her son, treating him like a prince while treating me like a servant. She was the one who inspected my chores, who criticized my clothes, who always reminded me that my only job was to make my brother's life easier. "Don't bother your brother, Jennifer, he's thinking," she'd say, even if he was just playing video games. The betrayal, I realized, hadn't started on my 18th birthday. It had been a slow, steady erosion my entire life. They hadn't just kicked me out, they had been pushing me out, piece by piece, for 18 years. My life after the eviction was a brutal contrast to the one they were funding for CHR. Istafer, while I was learning to code in 20-minute bursts on my break at the convenience store, he was at a state university, probably sleeping through the classes I would have given anything to attend. While I was eating instant noodles, he was using my money to buy textbooks, or, more likely, beer. The first year was about survival. The second year was about anger. The third year was when the anger turned into fuel. I had finished every free coding camp on the internet. I'd built a portfolio of mock projects. I was good. I knew I was good. But I had no degree, no connections, and a resume that screamed unreliable, 2 low-wage jobs, and a community college email address. That's when I saw the posting for an operations intern at a small but growing tech consulting firm, Ethelred Solutions. It was unpaid. I almost closed the tab. I couldn't afford unpaid. I was still sharing a room with Tabitha, who was now a paralegal, and my half of the rent was barely manageable. But the description mentioned process optimization and data management. I took a risk. I submitted my resume, and in the cover letter, I didn't just ask for the internship. I attached a 3-page analysis of their public-facing website, detailing 3 specific code vulnerabilities I'd found and a plan to fix them. I got a call the next day, not from HR, but from the Vice President of Operations, David Chen. "Who is this?" he'd barked into the phone. "Jennifer," I said, my voice small. "Your analysis," he said. "It's good. It's also arrogant. You shouldn't have put this in an email. This is sensitive." I'm sorry, sir. I just wanted to show I was serious." There was a long pause. "You're the one from the warehouse, right? You're Jennifer." I froze. "How did you know that?" "I got a call from an old colleague. Ethan said his best warehouse packer was a secret coding genius and that if I was smart, I'd poach you before Google did. He sent me your resume last week. This little stunt just confirmed what he said. Don't come in for the internship. It's a waste of time. Come in tomorrow at 9 a.m. We'll find a paid position for you, junior analyst. Don't be late." He hung up. I stared at the phone. Ethan, he had done that for me. That was the day my life changed. That was the day the future my parents tried to give away began to find its way back to me. My ascent at Ethelred Solutions was fast, not because I was a prodigy, but because I was relentless. I hadn't just survived. I'd learned to outwork, outthink, and outlast everyone. The corporate world wasn't a library or a convenience store, but the core principle was the same. Find the problem, solve it, and move to the next one. While others were networking at happy hours, I was automating their jobs. David Chen was a true mentor. He was tough, demanding, and saw my desperation as a tool, not a weakness. "You're hungry, Jennifer," he told me during my first-year review. "Good, don't ever get full." He promoted me from junior analyst to team lead within 18 months. By my third year, I was a senior team lead, managing the entire intake and optimization team for our biggest clients. I had my own apartment, a real one, with a bedroom door that locked. I had a salary that made me cry when I saw the first deposit. I had finally built a life. Tabitha was my biggest cheerleader. We'd have dinner once a week, and she'd marvel at my transformation. "You're a different person, Jen," she said, sipping her wine. "I'm the same person," I told her. "I just have a real mattress now." But she was right. I was different. The fear was gone. The constant, gnawing anxiety of where will I sleep had been replaced by a cold, sharp confidence. One Tuesday morning, David Chen called me into his office. "Close the door," he said. I sat down. His expression was unreadable. "We've got a new contract with a mid-level logistics firm. They're trying to modernize, but their internal systems are a mess. They need a full overhaul, and they need to hire a new junior management team to run it." "Okay," I said. "Sounds like a standard project." "Here's the twist," David said, leaning forward. "They don't trust their own HR to find the right people. They're outsourcing the entire hiring process for that team to us. They want us to build the job descriptions, run the interviews, and give them a final, vetted list of candidates. Outsourcing hiring, that's unusual." "It's smart," he said. "They know their internal rot is a people problem. They want fresh blood, picked by people who actually know tech, and you are going to lead it. You'll have final say on every candidate who gets passed to the client." I felt a surge of pride. This was a huge responsibility. "I'm on it, David." "Good, the resumes start coming into your portal today. I want your first-round picks by Friday." I spent the next 2 days buried in resumes. It was a parade of mediocrity, kids with shiny degrees and zero real-world skills. I was ruthless. I rejected anyone who hadn't held a job for more than a year, anyone whose skills section listed Microsoft Word. On Thursday afternoon, I was on my 100th resume. I clicked Next and idly sipped my coffee. The name on the screen made the coffee go down the wrong way. Christopher, my last name. I choked, spraying coffee over my keyboard. I stared, my heart hammering against my ribs. It couldn't be, but it was. My brother, the golden child, the one who deserved the future. His resume was pathetic. He'd graduated, a year late, with a 2.7 GPA in business management. His work history was a joke: assistant manager at a sporting goods store for 6 months. Summer intern at an uncle's insurance office. There was a full 2-year gap between his graduation and now. He was applying for a junior project manager role. A role he was, by any objective measure, ridiculously unqualified for. My first instinct was to hit reject. To delete the file and pretend I'd never seen it. It would be easy, no one would ever know. But then I looked at the resume again, the sheer arrogance of it. He was applying for a job he hadn't earned, just like he had been given everything else. A slow, cold idea began to form. A trap. Not a trap of my making, but one he was walking into all on his own. My leverage wasn't just my success, it was the process itself. The professional, objective, multi-step interview process I had designed. I didn't hit reject. I looked at the calendar. I scheduled his first-round interview for the following Monday at 10 a.m., and I assigned myself as the interviewer. The weekend was the longest of my life. I told no one. Not Tabitha, not David. This was mine. I prepared for that interview like I was preparing for a board meeting. I reviewed the project specs. I reviewed the other qualified candidates. And I reviewed Christopher's laughably thin resume, marking it up with red ink. I memorized his education, his job history, and the massive, gaping hole where his future was supposed to be. I was calm. I was terrifyingly calm. This wasn't revenge. This was quality control. On Monday at 9:50 a.m., I sat in my office, a minimalist space with glass walls overlooking the city. At 9:58, my assistant buzzed me. "Ms. Jennifer, your 10 a.m. is here." "Send him in," I said, my voice even. The door opened, and there he was. Christopher was thicker than I remembered, his boyish charm replaced with a soft, unearned confidence. He was wearing an ill-fitting suit, one that looked like it had been bought for a funeral and never tailored. He walked in, his smile plastered on, hand outstretched, not even looking at me. "Hello," he said, oozing false bravado. "Great to be here, you must be." He looked up, his eyes met mine. The smile didn't just vanish, it shattered. His face went chalk white. His outstretched hand froze in the air, then dropped to his side as if it had been burned. "Jen," he whispered. He looked around the office, at the nameplate on my desk, at my tailored blazer. "What? What is this? Is this a joke? Where's the real manager?" I didn't smile. I didn't stand. I simply gestured to the chair opposite my desk. "Please sit down, Mr. My last name," I said, my voice a perfect, professional monotone. He stumbled into the chair, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Jenny, what are you doing here? You're the interviewer." "I am the senior team lead for this project, yes," I said. I picked up my pen and clicked it. The sound was like a gunshot in the silent room. "This is your interview for the junior project manager position. Shall we begin?" "But how?" he stammered. Mom and Dad said you were working in a store. They said you were struggling." "We are not here to discuss my history," I said, my voice hardening. "We are here to discuss your qualifications. Let's start with your resume." I held it up. "It says here you graduated with a 2.7 GPA in business management. Can you explain why you believe that GPA reflects an aptitude for a high-pressure, detail-oriented role?" Christopher gaped, his brain clearly unable to process the situation. It was a good school. Everyone knows the grades are hard there." "I see," I said, making a note. "And this 2-year employment gap since graduation. Can you walk me through what you were doing during that time?" I was networking," he lied poorly. "I was exploring options, taking a sabbatical." "A sabbatical," I repeated, my pen scratching on the paper. "For 2 years, must have been very refreshing. And before that, assistant manager at a sporting goods store. What were your key performance indicators in that role?" "My what?" "Your KPIs, your metrics for success. Did you increase sales, optimize inventory, reduce shrinkage?" I worked the register," he said, his voice small. I made the schedule." "So you have no documented management experience, no project management experience, no tech experience. Is that correct?" The color was returning to his face, but now it was a splotchy, angry red. The shock was wearing off, replaced by the familiar, entitled arrogance I'd known my whole life. "You can't do this, Jenny," he hissed, leaning forward. "This is my interview. You're just the help. I'm going to report you. I'm going to tell them you're sabotaging me." "Sabotaging?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Mr. My last name, I am conducting this interview by the exact standards set by our client. You are a candidate for a position. You are, at present, failing to demonstrate your suitability for it." "This is petty," he spat. "You're just jealous. You've always been jealous." "Jealous?" I said, my voice dropping. The professional mask slipped, just for a second, and he flinched. "Jealous of what, Christopher? Your 2.7 GPA? Your 2-year sabbatical? The fact that you were handed my college fund and squandered it, and are now sitting in my office, begging me for a job you aren't qualified for?" He was speechless. The truth, spoken so plainly in this sterile, corporate environment, had hit him like a physical blow. "This interview is over," I said, standing up. I was perfectly calm again. "Thank you for your time. Our HR department will be in touch." "You can't do this," he shouted, standing up so fast his chair screeched. "Mom and Dad will destroy you for this. They'll sue you, I'm telling them." "Are you?" I asked, walking to my office door and opening it. "You have my permission. Please tell them. Tell them you found me. Tell them exactly where I am." He stared at me, his face a mask of rage and humiliation. He knew he'd lost. He knew the power dynamic had not just shifted, it had been inverted. "You'll regret this, Jennifer," he threatened, his voice a low growl. "I doubt it," I said. "Have a good day, Christopher. Security can validate your parking on the way out." He stormed out, brushing past my assistant. I closed the door, walked back to my desk, and sat down. My hands were perfectly steady. I took a sip of my now-cold coffee. Then, I opened his file on my computer, and with a single, satisfying click, I marked his status as rejected not qualified. The fallout was immediate. I hadn't even finished writing my formal rejection notes when my cell phone, the one I'd bought with my first paycheck, rang. The caller ID simply said, "Susan." My mother, I hadn't spoken to her in 4 years. I let it ring, silencing it on my desk. A second later, it rang again, and again. On the 4th try, I picked up. "What do you want?" I said, my voice flat. "Jennifer, what did you do to your brother?" she shrieked, her voice a familiar, piercing wail. "He came home in tears. You humiliated him. How dare you?" "I conducted a job interview," I said, leaning back in my chair. "He was not qualified. The end." "Not qualified? He's your brother. He has a degree. You work in an office, you push paper. You're supposed to help him. After everything we did for you." A laugh, sharp and humorless, escaped my lips. "Everything you did for me? You threw me out onto the street while I was sick. You gave him my car, my room, and my entire future. The only thing you ever did for me was show me exactly who you are." "You are a selfish, ungrateful girl," she screamed. "Your father is on his way down there right now to talk to your boss. He's going to have you fired for this. You don't get to treat your family this way." "Is he?" I said, a cold chill running down my spine. "That's interesting. By all means, send him." "You'll be sorry, Jennifer. You give your brother that job, or you'll be back on the street where you belong." She hung up. My hands were shaking now, not from fear but from a profound, seismic rage. My father coming here, to my office, to get me fired. I stood up and walked straight to David Chen's office. His door was open. "David," I said. He looked up, sensing the urgency in my voice. "We have a situation." I told him everything, the whole story. From the night I was kicked out, to the convenience store, to the interview with my brother. I left nothing out. When I was finished, David was silent. He just stared at me. I couldn't read his expression. "He's unqualified, David," I said, my voice pleading. "You can see his resume. You can read my interview notes. He's not a fit, but my father is on his way here. He's going to try and get me fired." David held up a hand. "Jennifer, slow down." He stood up from his desk and walked over to me. He put a hand on my shoulder. "First," he said, his voice firm, "you are the best team lead I have. You're brilliant, you're tough, and you've more than earned your place here. You are not getting fired." Relief washed over me, so strong my knees almost buckled. "Second," he continued, a grim smile playing on his lips, "I think it's time your father and I had a chat. Why don't you wait in here? I'll have my assistant let me know when a Mr. Mark arrives." 20 minutes later, David's assistant buzzed. "Mr. Chen, a Mr. Mark, my last name, is here to see you. He's very irate." "I see." "And him in," David said, pressing the button. I sat in the corner of David's office, out of the immediate line of sight. My father burst in, his face purple with rage. He was older, paunchier, but his eyes had the same tyrannical fire I remembered. "Are you in charge here?" he demanded, pointing a finger at David. "I am David Chen, Vice President of Operations," David said calmly, not offering a hand. "And you are?" "I'm Mark, and your little employee, Jennifer, is sabotaging my son. She failed him on an interview out of spite. I am here to demand that you fire her immediately and give my son, Christopher, the job. It's the least you can do for the trouble." David just looked at him. "Mr. Mark, I have personally reviewed your son's resume. I have also reviewed my team lead's interview notes. Your son is, to put it mildly, completely unqualified for this position. He has no relevant experience, a poor academic record, and by all accounts, an unprofessional attitude." My father's jaw dropped. "How dare you? He's a college graduate." "So are a dozen other candidates we've rejected today," David said, his voice as cold as steel. "But your son's case is unique, because you've come in here and confirmed my team lead's assessment of his character. You've demonstrated that he hasn't earned anything in his life. He expects it to be handed to him, just like you're doing now." "You can't talk to me like that," my father roared. "Yes, I can," David said, standing up. "This is my office, and you are trespassing. Now let me tell you what is going to happen. My team lead, Jennifer, who I am told you threw out of your house with nothing, has built a career here through sheer talent and hard work. She is one of my most valuable assets. Your son is not. If you or any member of your family contacts her, or me, or anyone at this firm again, I will not hesitate to file a restraining order for harassment. If you set foot in this building again, I will have you removed by security. Am I clear? My father was speechless. He was sputtering, his face a mottled red and white. He had come in expecting to bully some spineless manager, just as he had bullied me his entire life. He had run headfirst into a man he couldn't intimidate. This isn't over, he stammered, his threat hollow. Oh, I believe it is, David said. Now get out. My father looked at David, then at me, standing in the corner. His eyes were full of a hatred so pure it was almost beautiful. He said nothing. He just turned and fled the office. David watched him go, then turned to me. You okay? I let out a breath I felt like I'd been holding for 4 years. Yeah, I said, a real smile spreading across my face. Yeah, David, I'm great. The silence from my family for the next few days was absolute. It was a loaded, angry silence, the kind I knew meant they were regrouping. My father and mother were bullies, and bullies don't give up after the first punch. Christopher, I knew, was at home, his pride shattered, and my parents would be trying to figure out a new angle. David had HR flag their names in our system. Any communication from them was to be routed directly to him and legal. I felt safe, protected, but I also knew it wasn't over. The true victory wasn't just in denying Christopher the job, it was in making them understand that the power dynamic was permanent. The opportunity came a week later, in an unexpected form. Ethelred Solutions was hosting its annual Next Generation in Tech Gala. It was a major networking event, a chance for the firm to show off its top talent to our biggest clients. David had insisted I not only attend, but also be one of the featured speakers, to talk about my work in process optimization. I was terrified, but I agreed. I spent a small fortune on a sleek, dark blue dress that was the definition of professional power. Tabitha helped me with my hair and makeup. You look, she said, zipping me up, like you own the place. I'm working on it, I smiled. The gala was held in the grand ballroom of a downtown hotel. The room was glittering, filled with executives and the sharp, ambitious energy of the tech world. David introduced me to clients, his voice ringing with pride. This is Jennifer. She's the one I told you about, the architect of the new logistics platform. I was shaking hands, smiling, and actually enjoying myself when I felt a sudden, cold prickle on the back of my neck. I turned. Standing near the entrance, looking completely out of place, were my parents and Christopher. They weren't in formal wear. My father was in his work slacks, my mother in a gaudy department store dress. Christopher was in the same cheap suit he'd worn to the interview. They had somehow gotten past security. My mother was scanning the room, her eyes landing on me. She grabbed my father's arm and pointed. They began to advance. My first instinct was to run, to find David, but then I stopped. No, not here, not in my world. I excused myself from the client I was speaking with and stood tall, waiting for them. There you are, my mother hissed as they approached, her voice a low shriek that turned a few heads. You thought you could just hide from us. This is a private event, I said, my voice low and steady. You need to leave. We are not leaving until you fix this, my father growled. You embarrassed your brother, you embarrassed me. You are going to go to your boss, right now, and you are going to apologize and get Christopher a job. No, I said. What did you say? I said no. I looked past them, at Christopher, who was hiding behind my father's shoulder like a child. He's not qualified. He didn't earn it. You can't have it. That's the end of it. You ungrateful, my mother started, lunging for my arm. I wouldn't, a voice said. David Chen had materialized at my side. 2 hotel security guards were with him. Mark, Susan, and Christopher, I presume, David said, his voice polite but edged with ice. I believe I made myself clear, Mark. You are trespassing. Security, please escort these people out. No, my mother shrieked, her voice cracking with desperation. You can't. He's our son. She owes us. We gave her everything. This was it, the moment. All the executives, all the clients were watching. This was the public showdown. I stepped forward. I looked at my mother, her face twisted in rage, and I felt nothing but a cold, clear pity. Everything? I asked, my voice carrying in the suddenly quiet ballroom. Let's be clear about what you gave me. On my 18th birthday, you threw me out of your house because I was sick. You told me, and I quote, "Your brother deserves the future, not you." You gave him my $50,000 college fee. ND, you gave him my car. You gave him my room. You left me on the street with a 48% battery and a case of mono. A collective gasp went through the room. My mother's face went pale. I spent the next year working 2 jobs, I continued, my voice gaining strength. I slept on a couch. I taught myself to code at a public library. I fought for everything I have. This, I said, gesturing around the room, this is my future. The one I built myself from the nothing you left me with. I turned to Christopher. And you took it all. You took my money, my car, and my home, and you wasted it. You failed. And now you come here to my place of work and demand that I give you the one thing you can't have, the one thing you've never understood. A future you actually earned. Christopher couldn't look at me. He was staring at the floor, humiliated. My father was trembling with a rage, so profound he couldn't even speak. My mother, however, had one last bit of venom. You're a liar, she spat. You were a difficult child. We did what was best. Then this is what's best, I said, my voice final. I looked at the guards. Please get them out. The guards moved in, each taking one of my parents by the arm. My father was silent, defeated, but my mother, she fought. No, let go of me, Jennifer. Christopher, finally, seemed to break. As the guards started to lead his parents away, he looked at me. His eyes were wide, not with anger, but with a dawning, horrifying realization. He had seen my life. He had seen what I had, who I was, and he had looked at himself. Jen, he whispered, I'm sorry. It was small, it was pathetic, it was 4 years too late. But as the guards pulled his mother out of the ballroom, he didn't follow. He just stood there, watching me, his world completely undone. He had finally realized the truth. I just held his gaze, my expression unyielding. Then, I turned my back on him and walked back to my clients. The aftermath of the gala was, professionally, a triumph. David Chen, in a masterstroke of management, had framed the incident to our clients as a passionate, personal testament to the kind of drive we hire at Ethelred. I became a minor legend at the firm. The team lead who had literally been kicked out, fought her way back, and then had her trespassers removed from the company's biggest event. My career wasn't just secure, it was supercharged. But the personal resolution was messier. Christopher hadn't left with my parents. He had been allowed to wait in the hotel lobby. After the gala, as I was waiting for my car, he approached me. He looked smaller than I'd ever seen him. Jen, he said, his voice raw, what they said, is that true about the mono? Yes, I said. I was in the clinic that morning. I came home to tell them I was sick and they threw me out. He seemed to collapse in on himself. Oh, I didn't know. They told me that you'd had a fight and left. They said you were being dramatic. And the money, the car, my room, you thought that was just dramatic. I was an idiot, he whispered, finally meeting my eyes. I've always been an idiot. They always told me I was the special one, that everything would just work out for me, and you were just Jenny. I'm still just Jennifer, I said. No, he said, shaking his head. You're not. I saw that room. I heard those people. They respect you, what you said. About me, you were right. I wasted it all. The money's gone. I'm living at home. I've done nothing. We were quiet for a moment. The valet pulled my car up, a modest but new sedan that I had bought and paid for myself. What do you want, Christopher? I asked, tired. I want "I want to say I'm sorry," he said, and this time it sounded real. "And I want to ask you, what do I do?" I looked at my brother. The golden child, now tarnished and lost. I could have been cruel. I could have told him to go work the midnight shift at a convenience store. But I didn't. "You stop blaming everyone else," I said, opening my car door. "You get a job, any job, you show up on time, you work hard, you apologize to the people you've hurt, and you build a life, not one that's given to you. One that you earn, that's it. That's the whole secret." He nodded, absorbing the words. Can I call you sometime?" I paused. "You can text me in 6 months, if you're still at that job." I got in my car and drove away, leaving him on the curb. My parents, I heard, were a different story. My father, humiliated, was forced into early retirement from his mid-level management job after rumors of the gala incident, which had been witnessed by one of his company's biggest clients, made their way back to his superiors. My mother, with her world shattered, became a recluse. They had lost their golden child's future, and in the process had destroyed their own. I never did he. R from Christopher's text. But about a year later, Tabitha, who is now in law school, sent me a link. It was a LinkedIn profile. Christopher, my last name. He was a logistics coordinator at a small shipping company. It wasn't a glamorous job. It was an entry-level grinder job, but below it, it said Employee of the Month August. I smiled, a real genuine smile. I was in my new office, a corner one this time when David Chen stopped by. "Big news," he said. "The client from the gala, they're offering us the full, permanent contract for their entire national logistics chain, and they're insisting you lead the project." It was the biggest contract in our firm's history. It was my future, solidified. "I'll get started on the brief," I said, pulling out a fresh legal pad. As David left, I looked out my window at the city. It had taken 4 years of grinding, relentless work, but I was finally here. My parents were right about one thing: my brother and I couldn't both have the future they'd planned. He had been given the map, the car, and all the supplies, but I was the one who knew how to drive.